Hi everybody, it's Webby. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be having a look at the brand new 2021 Hyundai Santa Fe. We've got the base model here today with a diesel engine. So I'll be talking you through some of the specification and features of the car, as well as going for a drive. Now the large SUV segment, as you know, is probably one of the biggest selling segments here in Australia. And the Santa Fe has really got its work cut out. Not only has it got its sister car, the Kia Sorento, but you've got other cars like the Mazda CX-8 and the Volkswagen Tiguan All-Cross. So there's some really big competition for this car. So let's have a look around it and see how it can battle against its biggest competitors. So starting off with engine choices in this base model, you can either have a V6 petrol engine with front wheel drive, or in the case of this car, a 2.2 turbo diesel with all wheel drive. So depending on your preferences, there's a couple of options there for you. Pricing starts at $44,700 for the V6 petrol and goes up to $48,200 for the all-wheel drive diesel. They both come with the same levels of equipment, so it's really just a choice of whether you want petrol or diesel, front-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive. The 2.2 diesel that we've got here today is 148 kilowatt and 440 newton meters of torque, driven through an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission. And then in the week I've had it, I have to say it's been really impressive in the terms of the way it drives, the way it handles, how quiet it is, its efficiency. So for me personally, this would be the engine I would pick. Starting at the front in terms of the way it looks, I've got to say it's not the best looking SUV I've seen. I certainly think the Kia Sorento, which is its sister car, is a much better looking vehicle. But I guess that's a personal preference. Some people will like it, some people not so much. But either way, it's a fairly bold design and you can't miss it when it's driving down the road. Standard equipment on this base level model is actually quite generous. We've even got things like LED headlamps with daytime running lamps. We've got 17-inch alloy wheels, which incidentally give a really comfortable ride as opposed to something like an 18, 19 or 20-inch wheel. So if you want maximum comfort, the smaller wheels on the base model are actually the ones to go for. Some of the things that this car does actually miss out on is things like keyless entry and push button start. But you've obviously got to save space to go further up the range to justify the higher price of some of the other models. It's not a big issue, to be honest, because a lot of cars have still got your standard remote key and obviously put your key in ignition. So if you can look past that, then this is a really good model to choose. Inside this base model Santa Fe, the interior is sort of quite minimal. There's not lots of buttons everywhere, which is actually quite nice. But it's the older design of dashboard, whereas the models further up the range get this new redesigned sort of centre console with all sort of the climate control and gear change and other buttons there, where this is a much more basic design, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, because a lot of people don't like lots of buttons and sort of confusing dashboards and everything like that. At the top here we've got the 8-inch touchscreen, which actually gets wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which strangely enough, when you go further up the range, it loses the wireless Apple CarPlay and you have to plug it in via a cable. So I'm not really sure kind of how that works, but yeah, I quite like the wireless Apple CarPlay. Although on a couple of occasions it has been a little bit glitchy in terms of connecting. But most of the time you can get in and it will connect fairly easily. But yeah, just on a couple of occasions it sort of failed to connect and I've had to do it myself. But that aside, it's a fairly easy system to use. All your basic functions are on there for the car and how to set things up. So it's not a bad system. It doesn't get built-in satellite navigation, so you do have to use your phone for any sort of navigation purposes. One thing I'm slightly disappointed about is it only gets manual air conditioning. It would have been nice to have proper dual zone climate control, because that's just a much better system, which is only available on sort of the models further up the range. Down below the air conditioning controls, we've actually got a few connections so you can plug in different devices. We've got a 12-volt power socket, 2 USBs, and then a little tray down here for your wireless charging for your smartphone. And I can confirm you can fit the bigger smartphones in there as well. My iPhone 12 Pro Max fits in there with no problems whatsoever. We then come to obviously the gearbox, the 8-speed dual clutch transmission, as I mentioned earlier. It's a pretty straightforward affair. You do have the option of putting it into manual mode and selecting gears manually yourself, but in fairness, it's such a good gearbox you could just leave it in drive and off you go. We do now have an electronic handbrake in the Santa Fe, which is actually quite nice to see, which has also got an auto hold function, so when you're at traffic lights you haven't got to sit there with your foot on the pedal. There's other buttons here as well, including one which allows you to change your drive mode, economy, normal, sport, that type of thing as well. You've got downhill descent controls, so if you are going to do a little bit of off-roading, you've got some functionality there as well. In terms of what's ahead of you for the driver, we've got the manual dials there for the rev counter and the speedo, temperature gauge and fuel tank as well. And then in the middle we've got a digital display, so that'll show you things like obviously your fuel consumption, Bluetooth, that type of stuff. And then a nice uncluttered steering wheel as well. Again, not too many buttons on here. The left side will take care of things like your volume, preset radio stations and your phone. Whereas on the right hand side, that takes care of your safety systems like your adaptive cruise control and operates a display in front of the driver. The seats themselves are really comfortable. The material feels slightly strange, it's almost a little bit like neoprene. It's cloth as opposed to leather obviously, but it's super comfortable and the seats are really nice and have just the right amount of bolstering to hold you in. It's no sports car obviously, but there's certainly enough here to make you feel like you're not going to fall out of your seat when you go in the corner. A couple of other things that I would have liked to see on this base model are things like automatic windscreen wipers and the automatic dipping rear view mirror. You have to turn those on and off yourself manually for both of those, which is a bit of a shame because at $50,000 almost, you'd half expect it to have at least automatic windscreen wipers. When we step into the back of the Santa Fe, there's actually a load of space back here. I've got plenty of room to stretch my legs out, my toes go under the driver's seat, and I've also got plenty of headroom. You've got little things like pockets on the back of the seats as well, so kids can store devices or books down there. So there's plenty of good options back here. We've got rear air vents as well, plus also a couple of USB charging points. The middle row can obviously slide backwards and forwards to extend space for people in the back. And as usual, we've got a fold down armrest with a couple of cup holders and ISOFIX child mounting points in the back seats for the outer two seats. Another nice feature, if you're the person that ends up sitting in the middle seat, you haven't got a big transmission tunnel in front of you, so you can actually put your feet down fairly easily without having to straddle the middle tunnel. Gaining access to the third row is actually quite simple. We press this button here and it automatically folds the seat and slides it forward, making access to the back really easy. Now once you're actually sat in the back, it's actually not too bad back here. Having moved the middle seat slightly forward, it actually gives me quite a lot of leg room and room to move about, so I'm not too sort of trapped in the back here. We've also got things like rear air conditioning controls and rear air vents as well. So it's nice to see that the air conditioning actually gets to the back of the car. And on this driver's side, we've also got a 12-volt power socket, so you can plug in electronic devices as well for kids that are sat in the back. Headroom is also fairly generous, so a tall adult could sit back here as well. Like most other large SUVs, if you utilise all 7 seats, it really shrinks the boot space. In fact, you'd probably only get a holdall or a couple of holdalls in here if you're using all 7 seats. Folding the third row down though is really simple. It's literally just a case of pull this lever, push forward, and then as you can see that makes a huge difference to the amount of luggage you can get in the back. One really neat feature that I like is this lift up section at the back, which hides your roller blind. So when you're not using your roller blind, you can store it back here. But if you want to take it back out again, simply lift the lid, pop it back into place, and it'll hide all your valuables in the boot. If you wanted to go for maximum luggage capacity, there's buttons here on the right hand side of the rear panel to actually press the buttons, and you can actually fold your seats down automatically, which saves you the job of having to go both sides of the car and fold the seats down. Alright, so let's take you for a drive and I'll tell you everything I like and dislike about the new Santa Fe base model with the diesel engine. Immediately you can tell how quiet and refined this diesel engine really is. It's very smooth, it's punchy, it's refined, it's economical, It really is a fantastic setup in this Santa Fe. And when combined with the 8-speed dual clutch transmission, I think they're a great combination together. The driving position is really nice. You get a great view ahead of you, there's plenty of visibility. It makes it a very relaxing and easy car to drive. In terms of safety, you're obviously well covered there as well. You've got the usual autonomous braking, blind spot monitor, radar cruise control. You only get rear parking sensors and rear camera. Front parking sensors are available further up the range, but that's not too bad because visibility out the front is actually quite good. So with all the standard features you get on this base model, it really begs the question whether you need to bother going up to the higher models in the range, unless you particularly want things like leather interior, sunroof or dual zone climate control. This entry-level model really has all the bases covered if you just want a really good wholesome family car. So that brings us to an end to the video for the 2021 Hyundai Santa Fe. You'll probably realise I'm obviously not in the car. The original footage that was shot for the end of this video, for some strange reason, the audio didn't work. So I've had to re-record it so I can upload the video tonight. So yeah, hence I'm sitting indoors and my dog has decided to join me. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you found out lots about the car. Personally speaking, I really liked it. There were a couple of little bits and pieces that I wish the car had. For example, the automatic windscreen wipers, the dual zone climate control. That to me would make it a perfect car because everything else about it was really good. The engine, the gearbox, the space, the specification. It's just the perfect family car. So if you've got any questions about the car, please feel free to leave them in the comments below for me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, hit the subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell because that will alert you every time a new car review goes live. So it just leaves me to say thanks for watching, thanks for joining me for this video. I hope to see you all in the next one.